So it happened. Godzilla was created again. We went to the trouble of getting rid of one, and then what did they do?
They just made another. The second birth of Godzilla was an unavoidable event.
What's going on, people? LP 2000 right back at you with another video. Yes, welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of Leslie Chambers Kaiju Reviews. Yes. Man, the second video of 2022. And in my last video, we kicked off the year on an awesome note with the KOC 1964 Godzilla, which you already know. That's my favorite Godzilla design of all time. And coincidentally, in this video, we're talking about my second most favorite Godzilla incarnation of all time. Yes, this guy is so amazing. So without further ado, let's dive headfirst into this awesome X plus 30cm Sakai figure review. And today we're taking a look at the X plus 30cm Yuji Sakai modeling collection of the 1991 Godzilla, the Abashiri Fierce Battle version, standard edition, based with super cool appearance in the super cool, yes I said super cool, third Heisei Godzilla flick, 1991's Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. And yes, this guy is so, oh my god, this thing is so amazing. Yes. And we do things around here. Let's get up close and personal with the box before we get into the figure. And this is a picture of the box, standard fare when it comes to the Yuji Sakai boxes. And you already know me, I love the artwork when it comes to the Sakai boxes, or 30cm boxes in general, but mostly the Sakais. I've always said that the Sakai boxes, the artwork on the Sakai boxes kind of takes it a step further in terms of its presentation. And as you can see here, you have the picture of the figure in the foreground, his upper torso, the bigger part of Godzilla is plastered on the box, in the background, the Japanese language text of the film, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, Godzilla 1991. Yeah, so really awesome box. Once again, standard fare when it comes to the Sakai boxes. So yeah, but again, this guy is so cool. I didn't think it was going to be this cool in person, quite frankly. But I'm glad I was able to get my hands on this figure. Now, here's the backstory with this figure. Now, again, this is the Abashiri Fierce Battle version of the 1991 Godzilla, courtesy of the 30cm Yuji Sakai collection. And this is actually the third Sakai that X Plus has brought out. They brought out the Hokkaido landing version, I want to say back in 2015, I believe. They brought out the Shinjuku, I think, landing version. I forgot what year that was. That was the second one, and this is the third one. And all three versions of Sakai 91 have been really awesome and pristine pieces. You know what I mean? I will rank them later on towards the tail end of the video. But I think every single one is superb. There's a weak one in there, but again, I'll talk about that later on. But this is a most welcome, awesome addition to the Sakai line. And again, last year marked the 30th anniversary of 1991's Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, which is my third favorite Godzilla film of all time, believe it or not. And they finally got this guy out to us, I want to say, it started filtering out to people, I want to say late 2021, going into now, which is early 2022. So people are starting to get their hands on this figure. More people are starting to get their hands on this figure now. And it is so amazing. Now, Sakai worked on this sculpt, what I understand, in 2020. And a year later, X Plus got their hands on the sculpt and decided to bring forth this figure. Now, they made three versions of this figure. They made a Godzilla store exclusive, where the dorsal plates had a bluish, whitish color on the dorsal plates. And it also came with a DVD, which I think showed Sakai working on this particular sculpt of the 91 Godzilla, right? Then it had a regular Rick version that had a light up or whatever. And then you have the standard version. Now, when I made a pre-order for this guy, the pre-orders came up, I want to say, May of 2021. And I made a pre-order. And by the time I got my pre-order in, it basically sold out. This figure was pretty much sold out pretty much everywhere, you know, at the time. You couldn't really find one anywhere, right? So I really put forth the effort to try to go after it any other way. Again, I go through Awesome Collector primarily through my for my collecting endeavors, right? And when I saw that he capped out on pretty much every single one of them, I really kind of like lost interest in wanting to get it. Even though, again, this is my second favorite Godzilla incarnation of all time, it's a Sakai. You would think I would put forth more of an effort to try and get it. But again, I'm at a point in my collecting journey where I'm really being more selective with what I want to add to my collection. So in a way, I was serious, but not so serious adding this guy to my collection, you know. Then I found out that Hybrid Search at the time was securing spots for the standard, but I think they also were securing a second batch. There was so much demand for this figure, so I think they came up with two batches, right? The first batch is dropping now, late 2021, going to early 2022, and I think the second batch is probably going to be dropping maybe February or March, hopefully without any delays. But I didn't want to get my hands on the secondary batch either, or a copy of the secondary batch, you know? So I kind of put it out of my mind that this figure was coming. I was like, I'm not going to get it anyway, so I really didn't put forth the effort to try and get it. Fast forward towards the tail end of last year, 2021, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Brandon Johnson. He actually had one, the standard, and he really didn't want it because he wanted to get his hands on the Godzilla store version. So I was like, you know what? This is an opportunity for me to grab one. I secured a deal with them, and that's how I got this figure. Now, between the three figures, for me personally, the standard was the most attractive to me because the Rick, even though it's a light up again, I'm like a lot of y'all out there, right? The Rick, or at least the light up, has to really wow me for me to pay the extra money to get one. And for what I understand, this one standard light up white. You know, if it lit up blue like he did in the film, then maybe more likely I would have went for the original Rick. The Godzilla store version, I'm sorry, I'm just not feeling the style of dorsal plates that figure's sporting. You know, if you got one, then good for you. But for me personally, the dorsal plates didn't look right for me to invest in that figure, where I would constantly want to look at that figure with those style of dorsal plates, right? So between the three, the standard was the obvious choice. But either way, if you go for the standard, the G-Store exclusive, or the original Rick exclusive, if you got your hands on one of these things, this guy is an amazing figure. And it wouldn't surprise me if this figure would win the overall figure of the year for X Plus 2021. At the time of this recording, we're still kind of going through that right now. Even though I know that the Megalon and the famous sculptor's line 54 are on the top running. But don't sell this guy short. Don't sell this guy short, because this guy is amazing, and once you get it in your hands, you will perfectly understand that. So that's the backstory with me getting this figure, the box, and all the good stuff. So let's get this. So let's get up close and personal with this guy. Again, this is the standard version of the X Plus Yuji Sakai 30cm Abashiri Fierce Battle version of the 1991 Godzilla. Right off the bat, you know, typical, you know, with the charcoal gray skin. You know, dark charcoal gray. There are subtle highlights there. He's probably a little bit darker than usual, but that's still okay with me. Really, the main selling point for this figure for me is the sculpt. Like, the sculpt is so amazing. So amazing. As a matter of fact, you know what? I said earlier I would go into the tail end of the video of how I would rank the 3 Sakai figures that we got thus far. The Hokkaido, the Shinjuku, and now the Abashiri. For me personally, and I know I just got this figure, so the honeymoon phase may still not be over for me, but I kind of gravitate more towards this one. Like, personally, I think this is the best one. The second one would be the Hokkaido version, and the Shinjuku one would be dead last. Honestly, the Shinjuku one would be dead last, no matter how you look at it. That figure just didn't wow me. I did have it, but I since sold it. Not to mention that the tail stand that came with that figure was an abomination against mankind. But again, for me personally, this is number 1, the Hokkaido is number 2, and Shinjuku is number 3. But I will say that the Hokkaido version is probably the definitive version. The Hokkaido landing version is the definitive version. You know, objectively, I could probably say that one is the best one, you know, because that one really set a tone when it came out in 2015. You know, that figure is so amazing on so many different levels. And again, this may be new for me, you know, because I'm in the honeymoon phase with this figure. But again, I just like more the of him rearing back. You know what I mean? Rearing back in the sculpt here. But again, personally, this is my favorite, but I can objectively say that the Hokkaido is probably the best one out of all of them. I know that's kind of like going back and forth, but one thing I can attest to, the Shinjuku one, nah, not so good. Now, again, this is the Abashiri Fierce Battle version. And again, these Sakai pieces are of sculpts of Godzilla taken from certain moments of the film. Like the Sakai 89, that was the Osaka landing version, where we see Godzilla basically just rampage through the city before he gets in contact with the Super X2 for the second time. The Hokkaido landing version of 91 I just talked about, that's when we first see Godzilla first make landfall in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. This one right here, this is at the point where King Ghidorah and Godzilla meet for the first time in the film. King Ghidorah lands in front of Godzilla, and Godzilla kind of rears back and roars at King Ghidorah, and King Ghidorah roars back at him. They're kind of doing like an intimidation display between the two before they come to blows, you know? But you can also make the argument there are probably 2 more of the moments where this sculpt was taken from. There's a point of view shot before King Ghidorah makes landfall in front of Godzilla. There's like an aerial point of view shot where we see, from King Ghidorah's point of view, him flying towards Godzilla. And as Godzilla is advancing, he spots King Ghidorah, but then he stops and kind of like does this sculpt, or at least does this pose where he roars and rears his head up a little bit, you know? Or after that happens, after King Ghidorah lands, right, and Godzilla and King Ghidorah are going back and forth, or you know, or whatever, and they both fire their beams at each other, King Ghidorah takes flight again to fly towards Godzilla. But now we are in the back of Godzilla, and we see King Ghidorah in the background flying towards Godzilla, and Godzilla does that pose again where he rears his head back in response to King Ghidorah. So there are 3 specific moments where this sculpt was taken from, but I think the primary one is when King Ghidorah lands in front of Godzilla and he does this pose. You know, but either way, you can make a case for 3 of those moments that I just talked about. But again, the sculpt is so amazing. The sculpt is amazing. The dorsal plates, dirty bone white, you know, whatever, looks really, really good. It goes all his major dorsal plates, his big ones on his back, as well as every dorsal plate on his tail, going to the tip of his tail. It looks really, really, really good. And also, for those tail stand lovers out there, lovers in quotation marks, this one does not require a tail stand. Unlike the Hokkaido version, unlike the Shinjuku version, this one does not require a tail stand, so I know y'all be happy because of that. But again, it looks really, really good. The charcoal gray skin, the sculpt. Sakai did his thing on this one. He did his thing on this one. The color on the dorsal plates, like I said, the main one is on his back towards the tail end of his tail. You know, it looks really, really, really good. Toes, dirty bone white, kind of a yellowish bone white. You know, the same with his claws. It looks good. I love how the sculpture of his arms. Again, his arms were typical Satsuma. You know, typical Heisei, and I like that. The buffed up chest seems more pronounced in this figure than the other two, in my opinion. You barely made out the buffed up chest in the Shinjuku one. That, to me, is like one of the trademark, or at least staples, of this version of Godzilla, because he is bigger, he is more powerful than the 89 and 84 version at this point. And they kind of showed that, or really displayed that more so in his physicality, in his physique, where his chest looks really buffed up. I said many times before that the 91 Godzilla is like the Brock Lesnar version of Godzilla, and that right there is a scary thing to think about. But when I see this Godzilla, I think of Brock Lesnar, just an imposing, powerful, buffed up, jacked up, just awesome force. You know, I'm sure my fellow wrestling fans will feel me out there on that one. But again, the chiseled chest looks great. The claws on his hands look great. You know, let's go to the teeth. Teeth individually sculpted, you know, and again, that was one of my major gripes with the open mouth Sakai 89. I really didn't feel that figure, you know. I got the Sakai 89, but I got the closed mouth version. But my main issue with the open mouth version of the 89 Sakai is that his teeth, they were just too dirty. I know that's kind of a weird little nitpick to talk about, but I thought that the teeth were just off, really off. But at least with the teeth here, they're not too dirty. Now, mind you, they're not pristine clean. Like, Godzilla should not have clear white teeth. You know what I'm saying? Godzilla has never been to the dentist, so he shouldn't be sporting clear white teeth like King Caesar. King Caesar got some great looking teeth. But Godzilla should not be having pristine white teeth. But the color applied to the teeth here looks really, really good. Looks really organic. Really looks really lifelike, you know, whatever. The tongue, the inside of his mouth, colored really well. His eyes look really, really well. Just everything about this figure from head to tail looks really good. Again, this was such a great release. And I'm glad that it finally got released, even though it was the last few days or last few weeks of last year, but it did finally get released on the 30th anniversary of the film, you know? Honestly, I thought Mecha King Ghidorah was going to be released last year. I think if there was any time to release Mecha King Ghidorah, because they've been teasing for so long, right? We know they're working on it. We don't know what's going on with the hold up. You know, I could probably guess that because Mecha King Ghidorah has mechanical parts, and he's going to be a lot more delicate than the standard version of King Ghidorah. So I understand that it might take a little bit more time to get that figure out, but still, that's been talked about for at least 2 or 3 years, as far as like Mecha King Ghidorah. And I thought when 2021 came through here, knowing that it was the 30th anniversary of the film, I thought for sure the Mecha King Ghidorah was going to be released this year. But I think they probably ran into some trouble. I'm just speculating here. I think they ran into some trouble on getting that figure out. So that's why they brought forth this figure. Not only that, we got 3 separate versions. This version, the Rick version, as well as the G-Store version, to kind of make up for the fact that Mecha King Ghidorah has not been released yet. I'm just speculating on that. But either way, I'm glad that they finally got this figure out in time of the 30th anniversary of the film. And again, it was late last year going into 2022, so a lot of people at the time of this recording haven't got theirs yet. But trust me, once you get yours, you will be in hog heaven once he arrives. Or if you got something from the secondary batch, either way, if you are locked in for a pre-order for this guy, you would definitely not be disappointed. Trust me when I say that. So that's pretty much it with the box, the backstory, up close and personal. This is an amazing release. And again, if this thing does win Figure of the Year, it may not, because I think the case is strong for Megalon and the Famous Sculptors Line 54. But if it does win, it wouldn't surprise me, because again, this thing is amazing, especially if you're a fan of the designer Godzilla as well as the movie. Now, let's do a couple size comparisons before we get up out of here. And you know what? Since this is the 1991 Godzilla from Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, the suit did make an appearance somewhat in the following film, Godzilla vs. Mothra, or Godzilla and Mothra, The Battle for Earth. Love that title. So we actually do see this suit, or this version of Godzilla, fight the larval form of Batra, right? So you know what? Let's bring up the X plus 30cm larval form of Batra and see how these two look together to try and recreate that setup. So let's go with the first size comparisons between the 91 Godzilla Abashiri Fierce Battle version and the 30cm Batra. So let's do that right now. Okay, folks, this is the first size comparison, and yes, alongside the Abashiri Fierce Battle version of the 30cm Yuji Sakai 1991 Godzilla, courtesy of X Plus, we have alongside him the 30cm larval form of Batra. And again, this suit did make an appearance not only in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, but in the following film, Godzilla and Mothra, The Battle for Earth, or Godzilla vs. Mothra. And we do see this version of Godzilla, the suit, fight this version of Batra. Now, the 92 suit would go on to fight, you know, the adult version of Mothra and the adult version of Batra. But that underwater scene where we see these two clash, it was with this suit. And as you can see here, this presents as a setup option on your shelf. Now, unless, you know, you want to display this figure alone, the 91 I'm talking about, if you want to display him alone or whatever, that's cool. But if you are into setups like me, you can basically get away from this setup, because this is basically how it was in the film size-wise between the two monsters. Again, we don't have Mecha King Ghidorah or the standard version of King Ghidorah from 91. So if you're in the versus setup mode like I am, you could just put Batra up against this Godzilla and you have yourself a killer setup, no question about that. But these two look well together. They look really well together and makes me want to watch the movie, which is something I don't say very often. All right, this is cut and dry. That's pretty much it with the first size comparison. And you know what? In the second size comparison, and the final size comparison, I should say, I do have one version of King Ghidorah that might pair well with this Godzilla, even though it's not the 91, because we don't have a 91 version of King Ghidorah from X Plus yet. But I do have a version of King Ghidorah that I do have that might work. So let's go with the second and final size comparison. Let's size up this version of Godzilla 91 with the flying version of King Ghidorah 1968. So let's go with that final size comparison between King Ghidorah and Godzilla right now. Okay, folks, this is the last size comparison, and I know what you're going to say. I know exactly what y'all are going to say. That is not the right King Ghidorah for this setup. And I understand that. But again, we don't have a proper King Ghidorah from the 91 film. So sometimes you got to make sacrifices. Sometimes you got to create your own little magic to try to get setups done. And even though this is not the same King Ghidorah from the film, this does look good. You kind of can get away with it, you know, because there was really not much of a big difference between the 91 King Ghidorah and the 68 King Ghidorah. Oh, by the way, this is the X Plus 25cm flying version of the 1968 King Ghidorah up against the 91 Abashiri Fierce Battle version of Godzilla. Sorry, I should have said that earlier. But again, there was not much of a big difference between the two King Ghidorahs. They both were golden, high golden color, you know. The structure was pretty much the same between the two monsters, with the placement of the wings and the heads and the two tails and all that good stuff. The only really major big difference between the two is I think the King Ghidorah 91 suit was bigger in size, and instead of having hair around the necks of the three heads, there were spikes protruding out of the three heads. So those are really the two biggest differences between the two. So you kind of can get away with this setup here. And again, with the way this Godzilla is sculpted, he's looking upwards at Godzilla. So you can position this Godzilla in front of King Ghidorah with him flying above him, and he looks like that he's responding to King Ghidorah. You know, the sculpt is in response to the flying version of King Ghidorah. So if you have this version of the flying King Ghidorah, and if you're getting this 91, you can create this potential setup here. Again, it's not the same King Ghidorah from 91, I get that. But until we do get a proper King Ghidorah, this will have to do. And I think it does look great. Whether it's this figure right here or the Batra you saw in the previous size comparisons, or if you want to put this figure alone, or if you want to put this figure up against the other Sakai 91s that you may have, you got some options here. Between the three, whether he stands alone or with this version of King Ghidorah or Batra, I'm probably going to display him like this, because this looks great. This looks really great. It really makes me anxious that they do get around, as we're talking about, of making a 91 King Ghidorah. We need Mecha King Ghidorah. We need the regular version of King Ghidorah. As a matter of fact, he's the final monster of the Big Five that needs something represented from the three major eras. And Rodan. I forgot about Rodan. But we need a Heisei version of King Ghidorah sooner rather than later, in my opinion. And I know it's coming. I think it is coming. Just a matter of time until they work all the kinks out. But until we do get that version of King Ghidorah, if you had this flying version, like I said, it makes for a killer setup with the new 91. So that's it with all the size comparisons. So let's go with my final commentary portion and let's wrap up this review of the X Plus 30cm Sakai Abashiri Fierce Battle version of the 91 Godzilla. So let's do that right now. Okay, folks, I'm back with my final thoughts of the X Plus 30cm Yuji Sakai modeling collection of the 1991 Godzilla, the Abashiri Fierce Battle Standard Edition version. Boy, that's a mouthful. But that's part for the course when it comes to these Sakais, right? Like I said, the Sakai 89 is the Osaka landing version. The first 91 was the Hokkaido landing version. The 84 that came out last year, right? That's the Shinjuku battle version. Yeah, it's a mouthful when it comes to these Sakais. But again, 10 out of 10. This guy is amazing. And as I said earlier, this is my favorite Sakai 91 out of all of them. Even though I would endorse and would say that the Hokkaido version is the definitive one, you know. But for me personally, I actually prefer this one over the Hokkaido version. You know, so again, if I were to rank them, this would be number 1, Hokkaido would be number 2, and Shinjuku would be way dead last. Again, that figure is okay. It's just, it didn't really wow me like this one and the Hokkaido 91 did, you know. But again, this is a great figure. So if you got this version, the G-Store version of the Rick version, and you're still waiting for that guy to arrive to your doorstep, you will be in hog heaven once he arrives, because this figure is amazing. And let's talk about the film. 1991's Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, and I feel real bad because I didn't really cover this film last year. I was going to, because you know I did a 20th anniversary live stream discussion over GMK, right? And I had a plan to get with Matt Jacobson, Gojira 851, who is also a huge 91 fan, as well as John Ruffin from Collect All Monsters. I was going to get together with those two awesome gentlemen and discuss this film. But you know what? We are going to get together real soon, where myself, Matt, as well as John, we would get together and we would compare the Sakai 91s, all 3 versions, and possibly a 4th, you know, the Hokkaido version, the Shinjuku, as well as the Abashiri version here. And we would get together and talk about our favorite 91s, because in this video, you get my perspective, you get my opinion. But you never know. Matt may say he loved the Shinjuku more. You may say John loves the Hokkaido one. But be on the lookout for that side project coming to Collect All Monsters. A Sakai 91 comparison between the 3 Sakais. Again, Hokkaido, Shinjuku, as well as Abashiri. But again, I feel real bad I didn't really cover this film last year in some way, shape, or form. Because again, this is my 3rd favorite Godzilla film of all time. And which is something that you don't hear a lot of people say. And I know I rag a lot on Space Godzilla being the redheaded stepchild of the Heisei series. If I'm being honest, the same argument can be applied to 91. Because a lot of people don't really like this film. They don't really like the wishy-washy, time-travel-y plot that was inserted into this film. And that's something I will agree upon. I think for a film involving Godzilla and King Ghidorah fight one-on-one, it's the only film where these 2 monsters, the iconic monsters, monster enemies, fight one-on-one. I do wish that the story involving bringing these 2 monsters together should have been better, or could have been better, you know what I mean? But I still enjoy this film. As a matter of fact, the top 3 things I enjoy about this film, despite the wishy-washy time travel element, I actually like that we do get somewhat of a backstory to Godzilla's origin, you know? We kind of see how he became the super monster that he ended up becoming. Now, of course, this retcons, you know, the majority of the Showa series. It picks up, basically the Heisei series picks up behind 54, right? They don't acknowledge anything from 55 to 75. And in the original Godzilla story, it was surmised that he was a dinosaur that hid away from humanity all these many years, and that the atomic bombings really woke him up. That's what woke him up and sent him on a rampage towards Japan. In this version, he's not a giant prehistoric dinosaur. He's somewhat of a smaller prehistoric dinosaur, and the nuclear radiation not only woke him up, but it made him super large and made him super savage, right? That's the story that they're going with here. So in this movie, you kind of really see the origins of Godzilla and King Ghidorah to a certain extent, because in this film he's not a evil planet destroying space monster. He's those three little door rats, which I know a lot of people don't really like. So you kind of get an origin stories of sorts of both Godzilla and King Ghidorah, but I think we all agree the story for Godzilla is stronger and more plausible and something that's more widely accepted than King Ghidorah. So I actually do like that we see that in the movie. You know, another thing I love about this movie, I love Godzilla. I love the suit of Godzilla. I already love his look in Biollante in the previous film, the Goji. That is an awesome suit. But what they did here, but like I said, added more physique and more of a chiseled chest in his upper body, right? His fangs are popping out more. You see more of his gums in his face. He just looks a lot more ferocious. He looks really hateful. And I love that, because you all know my favorite version of Godzilla, or at least character version of Godzilla, is when he's a straight up villain, right? And I really do love that. Again, the look of Godzilla, in my opinion, is awesome and it's flawless. And it's my favorite look of Godzilla from the Heisei period. And the third thing I love about this film, I love the twist. I love the twist where in this film, they want to get rid of Godzilla, right? Just so they can, you know, the Futurians want to get rid of Godzilla, right? So they can send King Ghidorah to attack Japan, right? They basically just try to rewrite history. You know, they try to rewrite Godzilla's origins in a way. But I love the twist that after they try to get rid of Godzilla, but Godzilla still ends up coming back. He vanquishes King Ghidorah. He makes short work of King Ghidorah. But then it's at that point where, you know, because in this movie, King Ghidorah is more so the bad monster in the early going of the film. And customarily, Godzilla is always brought in to take out an evil monster, to take out a threat, right? And after Godzilla does that, basically Godzilla goes away and the story is over. Which is what I love about this film. After he dispatches King Ghidorah, everybody's saying, great, King Ghidorah is gone, and everybody can live happily ever after. No. Then Godzilla turns around and starts attacking Japan on his own. And I love that. I love that plot twist that even though Godzilla has taken out the other monster, don't forget, he is still Godzilla. He is still an evil monster, or at least he is still a menacing, awesome threat. And I love that twist in this film. Basically, we go from Godzilla being the savior, or at least being the antagonist, because they want to get rid of him. Then we look to him as a savior. Then he goes back to being an antagonist again by the end of the movie. So I just love that plot twist. I love how basically both King Ghidorah and Godzilla swap places. Even that final fight at the end with Mecha King Ghidorah and Godzilla, even though this film, as well as a good majority of the Heisei series, didn't involve a lot of physical altercations like we would see in the Showa period. In the Showa period, we saw kicks, punches, drop kicks, Godzilla taking monsters and shoulder flipping them. But you couldn't really get that done with the Heisei monsters because they were big, baggy, just massively, just awesome looking suits, or at least big in size suits. So you really couldn't get away with Godzilla picking up, you know, King Ghidorah, even though he does it a few times in the film, but we don't see him do what he did in the 70s Godzilla films, right? Which is kind of understandable. So most of the battle kind of relies on them just throwing beams at each other back and forth, but it still was a good fight, you know what I mean? It still was a good fight. But again, those top three things is what I love and appreciate about this film, despite its reputation. Again, the backstory for Godzilla, the look of Godzilla, the plot twist where Godzilla and King Ghidorah swap places. There's so much to love about this film. And again, I know a lot of people don't really, and they won't see that. They won't get all that, and that's perfectly fine. But again, this film is an amazing film in my opinion. It's my personal favorite from the Heisei films, you know what I mean? And again, I feel real bad that I didn't cover that last year, but I am covering of sorts right now. And don't forget, for that three-way showdown between myself, Matt Jacobson, also known as Gojira 851, as well as John Ruffin, on Collect All Monsters YouTube channel as a side project, where we would compare the Sakai 91 figures from X Plus. And again, I think a fourth one is coming. I think Sakai did do another 91, even though it's titled as a 92, because again, the 91 suit made an appearance in the 92 film. So I think that that design is still coming. I think that figure is still coming at some point. But in the meantime, we will compare the Hokkaido, the Shinjuku, and the Abashiri versions, and I'll let y'all know when that will be. But in the meantime, if you're locked in for a pre-order for this guy, you would not be disappointed. Yes. So that pretty much concludes my review of the X Plus 30cm Yuji Sakai Modeling Collection Standard Edition of the 1991 Godzilla Abashiri Fierce Battle version, based off his super cool appearance in my most favorite Godzilla film from the Heisei era, 1991's Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. If you have any questions, comment down in the comment section. Hit me on Facebook via Let's Be Chambers. We'll definitely go from there. Yes, once again, great figure. Man, this thing's so amazing. As you can see, I'm staring at it right now, and this is one of those figures that I really didn't expect for it to be as awesome as it really was. No different than the Mondo Mothra I got last year. When I pre-ordered that thing, I was like, I'm happy to get it. But when I got it in my hands and I unpacked it and I put it together, I was really amazed. I was so impressed by that figure. And this figure is no exception, even though this is the third version of the 91. And I know a lot of people are kind of sick to death with X Plus going back to the Sakai 91 well, you know, knowing there's a lot of Godzilla designs they probably could be tackling, you know. But as somebody who loves the 91, again, it's my second favorite incarnation of Godzilla, I don't mind it, you know. And again, this is such an improvement over the Shinjuku one. So I'm glad I'm finally have this figure. I'm glad that I didn't miss the boat on this figure, because quite frankly, in all intents and purposes, I probably shouldn't have this figure, you know, because again, I really didn't put forth the effort to try and go after it, after me, you know, trying to pre-order one, but wasn't really successful in doing that. But I just happened to luck into it. No different than the KOC 64 that I talked about in my previous video. But again, thank you to Brandon Johnson for opening that door, creating an opportunity for me to get this guy. And I'm glad that I did. So thank you very much, good sir. We do appreciate it. And again, if you're locked in for a pre-order for this guy, whether it's the standard, direct, or the G-Store exclusive, you will be in hot heaven once he arrives, because this thing is amazing. It is stunning, and is an awesome release from X Plus. There's no doubt about that. So ladies and gentlemen, I give to you the X Plus 30cm Yuji Sakai Modeling Collection of the 1991 Godzilla Standard Edition, the Abashiri Fierce Battle version from his appearance in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. Yes. So thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it, and I will see y'all again on the next figure move review. All right, y'all take it easy.